around nature, societal issues, education, business, and innovation. EIN educative, innovative, and nature centric.
Afternoon, good morning, and good evening to you, depending on where you're joining us from this very moment. My name is Idiom Senyen Dunobo, and this is Environmental Resource on ERN TV. First, I would like to apologize for not having you or talking to you for the past 3 weeks. It was due to circumstances beyond my control, and of course, the entire team, we could not just put up something. But trust me, we are back, and of course, we are going to be serving you very hot. Expect the very best. And of course, in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be with we'll bring in you updates. Let me put it that way. But expect something in the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be quite educative and informative as well. Look at something across the borders of Nigeria, and then you would know that it's something fascinating. You should be keeping you should be glued to your seatbelt, and of course you see that you take advantage of every information that will bring in your way. Once again, welcome to Environmental Resort. Sometime in the month we had the World Environment Day with the theme "Beat Plastic Solution." I mean, beat plastic pollution rather. And then a lot of conversations were being held across the world, and of course even in Nigeria here where we operate from. And concerns were raised, fantastic opinions were raised, and after the talks, what happened? So that's the essence we are having this conversation, and it's quite beautiful that we are having that we'll be having this conversation on the last day of the month, so that you know whatever it is you had, talked about some days ago, some weeks ago, during the celebration of the World Environment Day, you would have, or you should be putting semi into practice, and you don't just talk and then walk away. So, ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, I'll be hosting a friend and brother, because someone that I know loves nature so much and has been doing amazingly well for himself and then for nature. Recently, I put up a post on, I think, on Facebook or thereabout, and I said that nature has been kind to us, but are we humans? Are we kind to nature? So, ladies and gentlemen, joining us today is a man that is so much conscious about our waste culture, particularly plastic waste, and that pushed him to establish an organization called Plastic Culture. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Ubong Matthew, the Executive Director of Plastic Culture. Ubong, welcome to Environmental Research.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's always a delight talking to you on the show, and I trust today will not be different. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I had introduced earlier, we'll be looking at how we could leverage on what happened on World Environment Day, and not just the talks, plenty talks without action. So, how do we leverage on what we said, the whole conversation we had on that day? And to set the tone for that, I would like Ubal to just share his experience and of course his thought, because I know there was a show I was part of, and Ubal happens to be on the panel. So Ubal, after so many talks about how we could beat plastic pollution, how do we where do we begin from going forward? How do we leverage on such information that we've been churned out on that day?
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, so well, I would begin by saying that beyond environmental action and cleanups, we need to sustain the action. And sometimes I feel like it's a cycle of cleaning up whenever there's environmental, days, and just relapsing afterwards. So I feel there's a big need for us to continue the momentum by taking personal action to see that whatever we have achieved during the environmental days or the events that we have can be sustained and can actually build to create the impact that we need to to be able to sustain our environment and keep it safe and clean for us to enjoy.
Okay, so I would say you're beginning this conversation on an advocacy note, calling everyone to take action every day. So Ubon, there's something that has been quite a problem to me. Yesterday, I was in a vehicle traveling to a certain location, and a man who sat beside me was drinking from a pet bottle, and after drinking, I saw him push the window and wanted to throw it out. And I said, "No, now, guy, why not drop it here?" And he dropped, he dropped the pet bottle inside the vehicle, and that was how it was till we got to our destination. So now it got to me. Is it that our litter culture is bad or something, or we just feel like dating our environment or contributing to the crisis that we eventually get to complain about? So on this note, I would like you to share how we could, cop our litter culture, because I know if you do not cop our litter culture, or litter culture rather, the problem of plastic pollution will still be in existence. So how do we manage to cop this litter culture of ours?
Well, I think it has to be a very conscious decision we have to make on a daily basis because I recall back when we were in school, talk about the 90s, late 90s, you would really see, you really believe that in the 2000s that we will be dealing with people being able to litter and throw out waste without being conscious about it. So I feel like because from my experience, we've seen people who have tried to change the culture. I think it's a really poor culture that we've picked up from I don't know where because it wasn't really something that we grew up with. Um, Call it a reflex, call it I don't know, kind of negligence on um, being careful about how we dispose our waste. You notice that everyone just throws out everything they use, and sometimes they throw it out in ways that can be damaging. So I would actually say because I've known people who want to change, but somehow the habit, gets the better of them. So they would, say, "Oh, I'm not gonna throw it out," and then when they throw it out, they say, "Oh my God, I just threw out something." So I feel like we have to be conscious about it on a daily basis, and we have to speak more about it and tell people that throwing out your litter after using it is poor. It's a very poor habit and it's a poor culture that can actually put us in so much risk and cause all kinds of problems. And we need to hammer this in and really, if probably even do a campaign about it so people can get to know, okay, that when you finish using your waste, you shouldn't toss it in the environment. You should figure out a way to keep it with you until you can find a safe place to actually dispose of it
Okay,
without,
so
contributing to the pollution that we have currently with waste.
Ugo, that's quite a fantastic submission, and of course, we should see how we could, make people live conscious and see that they do the right thing at all time. But where do we begin from? Like what I the experience I shared about my what happened yesterday, and of course how the man reacted in the end, and but do not forget, that didn't happen without the resistance. So where do we begin from? Apart from the awareness, because I see the awareness to be also part of the talk stuff. How do we move from that to see that we really integrate this into people's consciousness?
Honestly, I would say that when it comes to um, curbing the menace of litter, I think we have a very poor litter culture. It has to start with the individual. And somehow, like you mentioned, people are not aware of what their action. They don't understand that what they're doing is probably wrong, or since no one is calling them out for it, they can just go get away with it without having to deal with the issues. So I would say that we should now be, take responsibility, all of us. I've noticed in some instances too when I have been in a public transport like a care and people actually want to throw out their waste and I'll tell them, hey, don't do that, and they would actually immediately, um, you know, um, feel remorse. Some don't care, but I feel like if we are able to actually put out a message that is very strong and very intentional about telling people and reminding them that when they throw out waste on the streets, that it's actually poor, and maybe even create some kind of enforcement for it. But I feel like before we go to enforcement, people should just know that it's wrong because, like you mentioned, when you told him to put it in the bus, he did put it. I mean, in the vehicle, he put it in the vehicle without throwing it out. So I feel like even from the vehicle owners, they should take first responsibility because when you throw out things from your bus, it should be your responsibility to actually keep
Mm.
your passengers from littering the environment. So you tell them if you have your waste, you should have maybe carry a waste bin in your vehicle, or tell them instead of throwing it out, put it in the bus because or put it in the vehicle because we will clean it up when we get to our destination. So people should just we should just speak up more about it because when we do, people will now begin to see that okay, this action that I've always been doing and is poor, and I get away with it. People are calling me out to it, and they probably would refrain from doing it. I think that's the first step, in my opinion, on how to actually tackle this problem.
Mm.
Tell people about it. If you're in a bus or in a vehicle moving and you see somebody wants to dispose their litter on the streets, tell them they should not. And you might be surprised that they will actually listen to you. So I think that's where we can start from before we get to involve the authorities to actually enforce, people littering because it's something that affects everyone and it's really poor.
Okay, thank you very much, Ubong. Of course, that is something you've said, and I was about hitting you with a question with regards to what the authorities will do, but I will still come to that with an example. Ebelude Kene, thank you for being a part of this conversation today. Ebel says that we need a conscious decision and personal effort. Okay, that this conscious decision and personal effort is very important in coping our litter culture. And of course, in that way, we would say that we're living in a conscious manner to say that we keep our environment clean. Thank you so very much, Abel, for being a part of the conversation. This is Environmental Resort, and I have with me today Mr. Ubon Matthew, the Executive Director of Plastic Culture. Best, we are doing their best to see that they beat plastic pollution. And we've been talking about how we could, leverage on all the piece of information we shared, we had on World Environment Day this year, so that we'll not just do the talk and do not take action. And of course, if you have any question, any contribution you want to make, and even after we've ended this live feed, do feel very free to drop them in the comment section. And of course, Ubon and myself will do justice so that we answer to all of them. So Ubon, let me get back to you because I understand that humans is said to be the most difficult organisms to let me call us organisms. Yeah, of course, we are to manage because you can tell a typical grown-up to sit here and he moves into this other part to sit because that's what he wants to do or he or she wants to do. So let's talk about where the authority comes in because I remember sometime in Calabar between I think that was about 99 to 2007 when Donald Duke was the governor of Cross River. People say that was the last time Cross River had a governor, but I do not know how true that is. You would, as a person, feel very bad if you throw out something from the window. Talk more of eating something on the road and then you threw the pack or the whatever it is that was packaged for you on the road. In fact, you have to look around and carry it yourself. And that means there was a strong policy, and of course, not just a policy, a follow-up by the government to see that people, actually stick to these laws and of course the regulations. So how do the government, for instance, like in Akwa Ibom where you are at the moment, we have the Waste Management Agency and they're trying their best, but are they doing enough? How do the government, how do the authorities, how do the agencies of government, from the federal government to the subnational government, how would they, or what would you suggest to them that they implement to say that we cover waste culture?
We actually are lucky that we are moving. Nigeria is actually moving towards net zero and net zero era. That means that Nigeria is thinking that by 2060 they probably would have moved into the green economy and reduce the impact of the emission on the environment. So I think the work that has to be done in our opinion, because one thing we've seen is that, like in the case of Calabar, or Cross River State, it was really driven by fear, and it, when something driven by fear, it's usually effective, but sometimes not sustainable. But we've seen that when once people know or they're aware that what they're doing is wrong and they're called out for it, when they do it, it is very likely that they might change. So I believe that I would actually suggest to the new government coming in that we should actually set up a policy, a no litter policy for Kwebom State, because it's really important that we do it. We actually are the cleanest city in Nigeria for several years in a row. But when you come in here and you see, if you look at 10 people, 9 of them that use stuff on the street will litter it. So it is not really about the government doing the work; it's about the citizens understanding why they should actually curb. I mean, keeping to this personal responsibility of saying, okay, when I finish using my waste product, I'm not going to toss it on the street, whether or not there is a means to dispose of it. For instance, for me, people think, oh, the government has to come in and enforce it. I don't think the government has to push me around. I'm not a cow. I'm not I mean, I'm a higher animal, so I understand. Personally, I want to reduce my own plastic footprint. So I would never ever drop anything on, even when I buy plastic waste or buy things that has single-use plastics, I'll make sure that I either take them to where I can dispose of them properly. I would not throw them out on the street, even when there's no there's no waste bins or whatever to throw it out. I will keep it on myself until I'm able to get to dispose of it properly. So I believe that we should actually put this message out there and really hammer it. Let people know that when you throw out, that litter is not our culture. We are a very clean state. It is evident in our culture. We used to be very clean. You go to school in the morning, you have to pick even the leaves. So this culture of litter, I think it started maybe in the late 2000s. So we should actually put a stop to it, because it's telling bad on our reputation. Imagine that we are the cleanest in Nigeria, but then our litter culture is one of the worst. I think we should really come into that. We should appeal more to the consumers, end users, to actually understand why they should be part of keeping the state clean, because somehow we are pushing all this to the government, and the government will never do it by themselves. They will always rely on the end users still to stop littering. And if they start to tax you or start to enforce you, then it's going to have to deal with a lot more, create more problems, which might be you're going to have to pay for it. They have to think of ways to actually hire enforcement teams, which will eventually still push back to the taxpayer, which is the end user. So I feel that the end user is the one that should take the first step before the government comes in and enforces the action.
Oh, of course, of course. Thank you very much. I like the way you're always very sincere with your response. Now, let me, before I get to talk, get to ask you to talk about the things you're doing at Plastic Culture, and of course how you are contributing to the solutions. I would like you to, talk about this particular set of people. Sometime last weekend, we were on one neighbor in New York, and we realized that I do not know, I can't say for a fact, if the gutters on Waniba, particularly towards Nibomaikon Hotel, has been evacuated since they were constructed. And I realized that there are people living there and they have leadership, because all of this, while we'll be talking about the government, but we forget that we, the people, are the government. Though we may not be driving with those big cars, but we are the government. And the traditional rulers, how how important are they, beginning from the family heads? Because these people, why I'm bringing them in is we realize that they were doing nothing, even in front of the uh, the traditional rulers' house. The gutter was filled, and I was like, how do you show leadership when you can't even mobilize the people to take care of your environment? So how do we integrate the traditional leadership of these communities, beginning from the family head to the village head to the clan head, and of course, so everyone that is involved at that level. How important are they, and what do you think they should do to see that we improve on our litter culture?
I'm so excited that you actually mentioned that, because that's one thing that we've actually seen as one of the best solutions to solving this problem is to approach waste on a communal basis. Because when you look at communities disposing waste, like see our streets now, you have a lot of dumpsters on the streets, and it's something that we can actually do without. If the communities came up and said, "Hey, we don't want this happening on our street," people should start, learning how to manage waste properly. So it boils down to education, and the education is not just for the people throwing out plastics; it's also for the leaders, because it's unfortunate that even the waste managers, most of the waste managers, even the public ones, don't understand or even adhere to proper waste disposal culture. So you can notice see that some of them would actually don't practice this at their homes. So it's going to be difficult for them to preach what they don't practice. So I would think that we should actually start the education from the leaders and tell them that if we manage waste properly, we can achieve so much, to actually reduce the incidence of pollution. First, we can reduce the tax that will the bill for plastic or waste evacuation or management, and we can actually also enhance the well-being of people that we're leading. So I feel like the leaders themselves should actually learn and understand that how the best ways to manage waste properly, and if we can engage leaders in this way, then they are the best people to actually engage the community. Because I recall last week we were on Oran Street talking to all the restaurant owners on Oran Street on how they can manage their waste properly. And somehow some lady met us and she was so excited about what we're doing. And she mentioned that somewhere in Akpandem area that this problem was really getting out of hand. And she suggested too that we should actually go ahead and talk to the community leader because he will be able to send the message across easier. So I believe that we have to engage community in
Mm,
managing our waste properly. Before the government even comes in, the community has to say, okay, we don't want waste dumps on our street because
mm,
it's going to create a lot of risk for us. So let's figure out ways to actually manage this waste properly. And obviously, some of them don't know how to manage this properly. So we have to go start from leadership to create this education and then trigger it down to the community basis. And I feel like if we approach it in this way, we might be able to get a better outcome in terms of reducing the incidence of pollution in our environments.
excellent, excellent, excellent. I don't know. You stay in the city, but you sound more like a grassroots person. But I believe it is if this is integrated, we would have a cleaner site. Because I remember back in the village while growing up, every Saturday it was made sanitation day for us, and we will make sure we go out on the street to keep the street clean. And we at that point we didn't necessarily need the service of uh, caterpillars to what's it called, to clean up our street for us, to grader, yes, but we used
Yeah.
to call them caterpillars back then. That's how we knew them to be called graders. They wouldn't really enter our streets, our roads, because even as a young person, I used to take active part in that exercise. We keep the street clean, we walk, and of course I know of a particular community where the indigents, if you were the government, the local government authorities grading the roads, once they get to the boundary of that community, they'll have to lift up their blade because the community would not want them to come and spoil their road. And if you go to this community, they to always be clean. So this is a point to the fact that pointing to the fact that the community has a very critical role to play. Thank you to everyone that has been a part of this conversation. This is Environmental Resort, if you're just joining us, and we come here officially every Thursday. But due to flexibility, we can come your way anytime, any day of the week, of course. And due to the variance in time zones of the people that we host on this program, that also contributes to the variance in days and, of course, time we hold the conversation here. And today we've been talking about how we could leverage on the Gains of World Environment Day 2023. And of course, today is the last day of the month, and of course, the month of June is always very unique as it is the month where we celebrate the World Environment Day. And of course, I've been having a talk with a very fantastic gentleman here, the Executive Director of Plastic Culture and a U-based organization which is actually creating a global impact to see that we beat plastic pollution. So, well, let's get to talk about the things you're doing with plastic culture. So far, so good. What has been the influence?
So I am excited to share this. Although we have had such, I would call it very micro gains, I feel like it's more sustainable. Because like you mentioned about Calabar when there was a lot of enforcement and the city was clean, but then when the enforcement went away, it returned back to the original status. I feel like in the past few years that we've been looking at ways to solve this problem sustainably, we have had people who will never ever throw out their plastic waste anymore, mainly because we were able to appeal to them, telling them why the impact of plastic pollution and why they should do the right thing. So it is now. I had a friend even tell me one time that I kind of ruined him because now before he would just toss his waste anywhere on the streets, but now he would carry it home like a weirdo. I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing to do because when we actually get to educate people, the end users, we can see three sets of people in our experience. One is the ones who want to do the right thing, who don't know the right thing to do. That's the first set of people that we actually have identified in this experience. And the second set is people who don't know what to do with their waste. First is they don't know what to do. Two is they don't know what to do with their waste that they generate. And three is they don't care. So I feel like we're always talking about enforcement and dealing with the third set without thinking about the first two sets, people who don't know that plastic, don't know how to dispose their waste properly, and those who don't know where to dispose their waste properly. So for us, we fell into the first and second category, where we tell people, okay, this is, if you burn, if you mix your waste, your plastic waste, if you litter it on the street, it is a poor way to do it. People actually thought, from what we've seen so far, that burning your waste was actually the best way to do it, but we realized that that's actually the worst way. If you burn your waste, it actually causes so much problems. It can actually help in increasing the greenhouse gas emissions and also destroy a valuable resource that we can actually recycle to create economic gains. So I believe that if from what we have done so far, we've created the solution for people who actually want to do the right thing, and they didn't know what to do. Like when we started, we didn't have way to dispose our own waste. We looked around across region. No one was actually really active or visible in recycling plastic waste. That's how we got to actually step into that role and do it. So we have created this opportunity for people, for end users who want to do the right thing and say, okay, what can I do with my waste now? We tell them your plastic waste, if you can keep it clean and you sort it, you can bring it to us and we can bank it for you. So it becomes a resource. This resource can actually be something that you can save. You can invest it even to be part of our own organization, or you can donate it as a gift. So your waste doesn't have to be messy. You can actually segregate your waste, because I think this is one thing we have to push: waste segregation at source. I think you're going to begin to see this policy or this message being pushed out more and more, because it is the way to go. The end users, people have to segregate their waste at source so that it becomes valuable. So that's what we have done with plastic culture. If you have your plastic waste that is sorted, instead of tossing it and causing and contributing to problems that we're facing, you can actually bank it in. If you don't need, because it's a very micro kind of contribution. If you don't need it, you can actually donate it. You would be surprised that scavengers, waste pickers, instead of going to the dump sites to dig waste, can thank you so very much for giving them your sorted waste, and they don't have to deal with the issues of going to the dump site and digging for waste and messing up the whole environment. If you are taking the right step, it can go a long way to make things better. So your waste is something that can actually be a gift that you can give, not just to encourage a green a future for everyone, but also to empower young people who you would see every day digging from the waste on the street.
Mm.
It is very appealing to see that. So instead of throwing out your waste indiscriminately, you can actually keep it clean and give it to them. Let them use it to empower their lives, and you can see that this effect will ripple, because then the street will be cleaner, and we won't have because pathogens of waste, like right now, if you go when it rains, You see a lot of diapers, a lot of human defecation on the streets, and we are picking this into our homes, and we are actually building a lot of issues that we are not really realizing yet. So the issue of waste is not just about being on the street, someone's street. You're bringing it to your homes, and it's causing problems. So I feel that we, the end users, should actually take the first step, and that's what we've done. We've created an avenue so your waste can become value. So bring it into our bank. We bank it for you. You can that can be your investment in our company. You can actually co-own our company with us, or you can donate it to someone who needs it, like waste pickers, or to any charity that you want. And also, you can contribute your own quota to reduce your own impact on the environment. And I feel like this is one of the best ways to deal with waste here, instead of always waiting and thinking that the government will have to do it, because honestly, the government can only do so much.
Thank you so much, Ubong. I wish time was be our friend, but we've of course we've hit our 30 minutes time frame. But before I let you go, I would just like you to share your final thought, because you've actually talked about so many things, even when I did not want to hit on those items, particularly on job creation and how we could see that the young people are productively engaged. And of course, what really touched me more about of the things you've said is how we could be conscious of the fact that we are contributing to reducing our plastic footprint, and to see that we have a healthy environment for everyone. So, Ubong, on a final note, and of course, I know you were always up to come up here to share your opinions. On a final note, I just want you in 2 to 3 sentences, share with us what if I stand up from here, or our viewers stand up from where they're sitting down to watch us, they begin to implement. So please share those thoughts in 2 to 3 sentences. Thank you so much, sir.
Dear viewers, I would like to appeal to you to take the first step to actually manage your waste properly. That means segregate your waste, which means sort your waste at home or wherever you produce it. And when you're done with it, you can actually send it out for recycling. If you don't know where to send it out to, you can actually donate it to people around you who you see walk around and collect waste. We have to take personal responsibility to manage waste properly, because if we don't do that, there is no policy that the government will bring out that will be the best solution to manage waste properly. So as an end user, the first step to take to manage waste properly is with you. So separate your waste at source and look for ways to recycle it. If you cannot find any outlets around you, give it to people. Let it be a gift that you're giving. If you can find, if you can locate us, bring it to Plastic Culture, and we'll bank it in your account, and it'll be like an alternative source of income or revenue that you can actually earn or save or invest or donate to actually ensure that we have a green environment. I've used more than 2 sentences, but I feel like message goes. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
thank
me.
you, thank you so much, Ubong. I like the fact that you're sincere, that you used more than 3 sentences like I had given you. But thank you for your sincere thought, and thank you for all the things you do for nature. And I would like to encourage everyone, if you do not know where to take your waste, plastic waste in particular, to plastic culture, that are there. Look for Ubong Matthew on Facebook. Look for Plastic Culture. That's actually the place to find him.
Yeah,
Look for Plastic Culture, because you may find so many Ubong Matthews.
yeah,
They're not like Eddie I'm saying in the Ubong that is only one. You
right.
have so many Ubong Matthews. So go to look for Plastic Culture, and you will find him and the team, and you deliver your plastic waste to them. Take it as a responsibility. Ubong, thank you so very much. Mbetobong says the plastic culture effect. Thank you so very much, Mbetobong, for being a part of the conversation. Ubong, thank you. Ubong,
Thank you
thank
so
you, and
much.
thank you. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to having you again on Environmental Result.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you. Okay, so that was our guest, Ubong Matthew, who came to share his thought on how we could, not just sit on the fence to, talk about talk about so many things about how we could keep our environment clean, but how we could, as a people, take action to see that we leave our environment clean and we do not just do the talk, plenty talks without action. So going forward, like he had said, as you're leaving this conversation, as we're in this conversation now, move to where you're keeping that waste. Make sure you separate them. Keep the plastics aside and make sure they are clean too, because that's another problem you will give to waste recyclers, that they have to, particular plastic recyclers, that they have to, see how they could keep it clean and all of that. And it's cumbersome. It wasn't the process for them. So keep your waste, plastic waste in particular, clean, and make sure you separate them. The biodegradable waste, those are waste from food stuff. Keep them separately, that you can easily dispose them of and they will degrade. But those ones that cannot biodegradable, please separate them and see that you take them to the right source. Like one of the things Subra mentioned, he said, with this, you can actually help a young person who is actually a scavenger, the people going around to pick waste for money. So you give them the waste, they go and sell. So you could pick interest in one of them and be keeping your plastic waste for them, or whatever kind of waste you're generating that can be of benefit to them. You keep them separately, and once in a while they come around, oh mama, oh sir, oh bro, oh ma, or sister, then you give them, and they will go and sell and make money. That way would have reduced the crime rate in the society, because of course they say an idle man is the devil's workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be it for today on environmental resource. Sincere thanks to our partners and of course our sponsors. I'd like to say a very thank you to Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, Climate and Sustainable Development Network of Nigeria, and Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Thank you for always making sure that we come live on our screen, and of course to make sure that people learn a thing or two in the course of our conversation. Thank you, and thank you indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ediong Senyene Ndunobo, and that is where we are calling the wrap for today on environmental resource. But please do not just watch, take action, share this video, and make sure your friends get to learn the many lessons that are here embedded. Thank you so very much once again. Good night.